Om Amrideshre Nama. Good afternoon, everyone. Now we are resuming our afternoon session. This session will be handled by Dr. P. Rammanohar, Principal Investigator, Indian Knowledge System, Research Director at Amrita School of Ayurveda. He received BMS degree from Bharatiyar University, Coimbatore, and MD from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science, Bangalore. He has been contributing in the field of Ayurvedic research since the last 13 years. He is presently serving as Director at Amrita Center for Advanced Research in Ayurveda, attached to Amrita School of Ayurveda, Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham. He is the research head at the school level research committee and PhD guide for interdisciplinary studies in Ayurveda at Amrita School of Ayurveda. He also serves as associated faculty at Southern California University of Health Science, USA. There is many more to add on to his count. With due respect, let me welcome Dr. P. Rammanohar to give a lecture on the topic Arogyasamskrti, Health Culture, Part 1, and he'll be covering the following key points: health culture of ancient India, folk and tribal streams of medical knowledge, health information in Non Ayurvedic Sanskrit Literature. Welcome, sir.
Namaste to all. Very good afternoon. It's a bit of a challenge to listen to a long lecture after a sumptuous lunch. So I regret that I am the speaker for the afternoon session. I hope I will not put all of you to sleep. I will try to make this discussion interesting. In the next 2 days, I will be trying to give an overview of Indian medical heritage and how we can use this knowledge to build our own, healthcare delivery system, strengthen it better, and achieve self-reliance. It's a very important point, in the future. So before we get into the topic, there are a few things that I have been asked to share. Is about this whole initiative so that we get things, understand things in the right perspective. The whole idea is not to blindly promote IKS system. We must understand things in the right context. We need modern knowledge. There is no question about it. It's not a question of replacing modern knowledge with IKS or, trying to force people to accept the superiority of IKS system. That's not the perspective. The idea is that as a civilization with a very long tradition of knowledge creation, there are many valuable things that we have in our own tradition, which we have ignored because of many factors like colonial rule and deliberate, downplaying of these traditional systems. So the whole idea is to just take what is valuable, integrate it with modern advancements in knowledge, and move forward. So every country, every civilization needs to do this. I mean, they need to be, creating a foundation in their own roots and then accepting new knowledge that will make the whole system more robust and more self-reliant. So we know that with this vision, the National Education Policy 2020 emphasized the promotion of Indian languages, arts, culture, and has also put this as a mandate that we must blend Indian knowledge systems into the educational framework at all levels of education. I have also been part of one committee, but we are really struggling to push IKS content into the NCERT syllabus framework. Right now, meetings are going on and curriculum area groups have been developed to see that 5 to 10% of our textbooks will have some content of IKS, either putting things in a historical perspective so that our younger generation can understand what it is that was there of value in our tradition, that we also had scientific temper, how we can go back to our roots and bring self-confidence and more creativity in the new generation. So this work is also going on. All this has stemmed from this new vision that is there in the NEP. So UGC is also proactively taking steps to facilitate and bring, create more resources, more capacity building, creating more human resources who can deliver this knowledge to the next generation. So that is the context in which this FTP is being organized. So this is a request directly from the IKS Division Ministry of Education to conduct such an FTP here, especially targeting the faculty of higher education. So what is the relevance of IKS in modern education? I mean, we all know that India has a rich and diverse knowledge heritage that evolved over thousands of years. And it is quite diverse. It's not restricted to just one discipline. It's quite diverse, right? So we have this division into Para, Apara, Vidya, which almost covers all fields of human endeavor and aspirations. So this is quite the richness and diversity of Indian knowledge system that way is very unique. You take any field, you have some tradition, discipline to talk about in the Indian tradition. So we know, so the major areas are philosophy, arts, sciences, technology, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, economics, political science, social science, ethics. In all these areas, there is an Indian perspective, there is an Indian, heritage. So the vision is that IKS has the potential to complement and enrich contemporary higher education by providing a more comprehensive understanding of human knowledge, civilization, and cultural heritage, and bringing these benefits to students, academia, and society at large. Especially we are interested in seeing how IKS knowledge can fill gaps, in our current modern scenario. How the applications are more important. It's not just about glorifying what was there in the past. What is it that from the past that we can actually salvage to make our lives better today? I mean, that's the real focus. And also, so there are 2-3 areas how we can, use IKS. One is to give us this sense of pride, which is also very important. We all think we are inferior, and we are looking towards to the West for all kinds of innovation. Our young generation, they aspire to move out of India and establish themselves outside our country. This kind of a brain drain situation. I mean, it's very important that we create some sense of pride. And it's not that IKS system has solution for all our problems, but it can inspire a younger generation to be more innovative, more creative, because they are more self-confident. This is one thing. The second thing is that, we can actually, many traditions like Ayurveda are still alive. Indian traditions, Ayurveda is unique because it is continued to be a living tradition. Most of the other systems went into oblivion. Whereas systems like Ayurveda are, and we need to see what is the future, how can we develop this further. I will also touch upon some of the opportunities that we have to actually develop our country using our Indian medical heritage, how it can address contemporary problems. So we also need to see how we can position IKS in the global landscape of emerging scientific knowledge. What is its position? How will it amalgamate and sync with modern developments? So you can see here, this FTP is part of this initiative by the UGC to train over 1,000 teachers to teach Indian knowledge systems from degree level. So this has already happened in 6 cities. 1,000 teachers were taught over the last 6 months. And it is part of that initiative. They asked some of the resource persons for these training programs to conduct FTPs in their own institutions so that we have more outreach. And I was mentioning from next week, another round is happening. From these 1,000 teachers, 250 faculty have been chosen as master trainers. Now they will keep spreading this knowledge, train more faculty. So eventually the whole idea is that across the country we will have a core set of resource persons who will be able to convey IKS knowledge in an authentic manner in the domain of higher education. So I thought it's important. In the morning there was not much time to explain this. It's important to know why we are participating in this program. The idea is that all of you who attend will be able to absorb some information from this which can be disseminated in the right spirit. So we'll also discuss about what is the framework from which, using which this knowledge should be transmitted. So now coming to Indian medical heritage, it's very important for all of us to know, and in the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, I hope we will discover how rich a tradition we have inherited. India has one of the richest medical traditions in the world, and Ayurveda is only one aspect of this Indian medical heritage. Many of us may think when we talk about Indian, that's why we use the term Indian medical heritage. India is unique because it develops not only indigenous, initiatives in knowledge creation, it's also very good in absorbing what is useful from outside traditions. So in India, we have religious diversity, knowledge diversity, language diversity. We are one of the civilizations in the world which have absorbed a lot of good from other civilizations. So a lot of things that have become Indian over the period of time is what has been naturalized, which has been adapted, internalized, and made part of our whole civilizational process. I think India is unique, holding a unique position here, demonstrating to the world how a global synthesis of all civilizations can happen. So we know in medical systems also, India is the only country where a pluralistic healthcare system exists. Even if you look at religions, we have religious diversity, knowledge diversity. In India, even today, tradition and modernity coexist. So India is definitely a crucible in which synthesis of what is impossible to synthesize usually happens. So as I was telling, there is enormous richness in content and diversity, and the Indian medical tradition is also one of the oldest in the world, and it has exhibited a remarkable continuity. I mean, it has just failed to. If you look at the conditions through which Ayurveda survived during colonial rule, in 1835, when the first medical college was established in Kolkata, the British banned the teaching and practice of traditional medicine. So from that time, without any state patronage, Ayurveda has been on the decline. Even now, we have very little funding and very little support from it, although it is increasing in the last many years. It is in adverse circumstances. Ayurveda is a system which has survived because of public support, because people kept using it, it has continued. So that is also a proof for its utility. I am not painting a very rosy picture of the whole situation. There are challenges, problems, limitations, but I am just now talking about some of the strengths of this medical tradition. So now the question, why should you listen to this talk? 2 days of your time and a very difficult time in the afternoon after lunch. Why should you be attentive at all to this task? So there are some questions that may be in your mind. So some of the things that you should ponder upon is that today the whole world has become westernized. We think there is just one way for progression, and that is the Western way of development. So now the question is there also an Indian way? See, we have in music, if you say there should does it make sense if you say there should be only Western music? No. If you look at dance forms, if you say there should be only Western dance, no. But when it comes to knowledge, we have got it wrong. We think that there is only one way of knowing. So what people are talking about now is a pluralism, a diversity of approaches, because no civilization is able to have a complete understanding of the human domain of human existence. I mean, we need diversity in approaches. Each culture, each civilization contributes a unique perspective in understanding what is life, in developing the tools to make life better. So the Indian experience is one amongst that. We have the Chinese worldview, we have the Indian worldview, so people are now arguing about we need pluralism also in knowledge approaches. There cannot be just one way of knowing. Modern science, modern Western way of thinking is a very powerful way to deal with the world, but we also need alternative views. So that is one thing we are looking at. So is it worth studying what our ancestors did and think? Is it relevant today? Why is it important to you and your students? What is the relevance of Indian medical heritage, and how can Indian medical heritage help to develop a holistic healthcare system? So I want to put things in perspective, and there are three verses that I want to bring your attention to, which is kind of the formula of how to bring IKS into the modern world. One is by the famous poet. I'm sure everybody has heard of this poet's name. Do you know who composed the famous Raghuvamsha, Abhijnana Shakundalam, or Kumara Sambhavam? It is Kalidasa. In one of his lesser known plays, which is called, Malavika Agnimitram. Has anybody heard of this poem? Yes, Malavika Agnimitram. He gives a very interesting statement, which I think is very relevant. It puts the Indian approach really in perspective. What he says is, Purana mityeva nasadu sarvam. Just because something is ancient does not mean that it is good. So this is the understanding, and we are not vain glorifying our old knowledge system. That has never been the Indian approach. Purana mityeva nasadu sarvam, nachapi kavyam navamityavadyam. He is of course talking about kavyam. We can replace that kavyam with nachapi kinchit navamityavadyam. Just because something is modern does not mean it is not good. Santah parikshya anyatarad bhajande mudha parapratya neya buddhi. So the wise people examine and take a decision after knowing the worth of the matter. Whereas those who are deluded, those who are, he of course calls a mudha, as a fool. So those who blindly believe in tradition or blindly believe in modernity is called by Kalidasa as a fool. Mudha parapratyene, they are opinionated, they are led by the opinion of others. So when we are talking about Indian knowledge systems or Indian medical heritage, we need this critical approach. It's not that we accept everything wholesale. We have to examine what is of worth in our tradition. We should not miss that. What is worthless should be definitely eliminated. This is the Indian ethos. There is a saying that yukti yuktam vacho grahyam baladabi shukadabi anyat trinamiva tyajyam apyuktam padma janmana. Yukti yuktam, if it is a meaningful statement, vacho grahyam, that statement should be accepted. Baladabi, even if a child says it, you accept it. Shukadabi, what? Even if it is a parrot who doesn't even know what it is talking about. But if it is talking sense, please accept it. Anyat trinamiva tyajam, if it is not yukti yuktam, like grass, you just ignore it. Even if padma janmana uktam, even if Brahma says something which is not meaningful, it is not to be accepted. Vagbhata also tells this in Ashtanga. He says, Edat Brahma bhashadam Brahma jova. Let Brahma say this or Brahma's son say it. What does it matter? Only what is true and valid can be accepted. So there is a lot of wrong underthinking that Indian knowledge system means blind belief. It's a question of just going back to old traditions. I wanted to clarify that's not the approach for the revival of IKS. We want to bring back that spirit of inquiry. We want to bring back that thirst for knowledge. In Ashtanga, at the end of the text, Agnivesha is asking Atreya, his teacher, he's telling, I don't believe in Ayurveda, even after your teaching. The student had that freedom to question the teacher. He says people are taking Ayurvedic treatment and not getting better. Those who are not taking Ayurvedic treatment are getting better. So how do I believe that Ayurveda really works? This is the question that Agnivesha is asking his teacher. So what we need is to revive IKS in spirit, maybe not just in content. And the second verse I want to bring your attention to is from the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Vimrsheta dasheshena yathechasi tatha kuru. This is knowledge. Now discriminate. It's a decision is up to us. See, we are just going to examine what is IKS. There is no compulsion. Compelling is not the way of the Indian knowledge system. It is enchanting. It is creating awareness and then people making people take their own decision. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, you can see there's this conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, and Arjuna is asking Krishna to tell him exactly what to do, and Krishna never says that. He keeps confusing. Arjuna at one point asks Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me. You are telling me contradictory things and confusing me. Tadegam vada nischitya yena shreyoham apniyam. Please tell me that something clearly. I will follow what your instruction is. But Krishna again never gives him a clear answer until at the end Arjuna gets the answer himself. So this is the way we should also examine IKS. Please don't think because of these FTPs we are expecting everybody to start propagating Ayurveda from tomorrow. No, the whole idea is that examine whatever we are discussing here critically. Evaluate it and then decide for yourself if it is worth it. Let us promote it. The third thing is, this is from Charaka Samhita. Samskarta kurute tantram puranam cha punarnavam. Definitely when we talk about IKS, we are not saying we should go back to the age of the bullock cart. Okay, stop all this technology. No, we are always moving forward. Ayurveda was also thinking forward. So Charaka Samhita tells this, that we need to make the old new again and again. So what we have not done also is that we have a 300-400 years lag. We have to modernize our traditions. Without modernizing it, it will not become relevant for the contemporary age. This is one of the gaps that we have, that we are trying to implement old systems the way it existed for another society, in another age. We have not been able to modify it. In our tradition, we have the Shruti and the Smriti. The Shruti remains constant, while the Smriti keeps changing according to the place and time. So this is a very interesting concept in Ayurveda also, that all applications are according to Desha and Kala, according to the time and place. So as time and place keeps changing, the knowledge also needs to adapt. So Charaka clearly says that we need a Samskarta. We need a person who will refine this knowledge system and make what is old new again. So the revival of IKS should also happen in such a way that what is an old tradition appeals and appears and looks to be modern. Because modernity and tradition are not contradictory. It is part of one continuum. What is tradition is what becomes modern, and what is modern again will become tradition. So if we look at them as two opposing things, we will not be able to move forward. So this is the conceptual background in which we are going to have our discussion. So Indian medical system has a lot of uniqueness. It is one of the world's earliest systematic, well documented and holistic system of health management. It has sustained the population of our country for several millennia, and the WHO has recognized this. So I want to also tell you another reason why Indian medical heritage is relevant today, because the WHO has recognized that without traditional medicine we cannot meet the entire requirement, healthcare requirements of the population. But how do we make traditional medicine deliver? That is another question. Because the modern healthcare system does not have the capacity to deal with the needs at the ground level. It would be too, exorbitant, cost intensive. We need alternative ways. But today traditional medicine is not integrated properly. It is being used in the wrong context, in the wrong way. So that is why WHO has come forward with policies. There are documents and guidelines on how traditional medicine could be integrated into the mainstream healthcare. And India has one of the richest traditions with, the Ayurveda, Siddha, Soa, Rigpa. We have both indigenous systems as well as naturalized. Unani, naturopathy, homeopathy, they are not Indian. But why do we consider them as part of Ayush? Because they have naturalized here. So this is another very important aspect of the Indian tradition. Even modern medicine could be practiced in an Indian way. It is in many countries it is like that. They have been able to adapt that to their local requirements, whereas in India we have still failed to completely, do that in that integrated way. So what we mean by IKS therefore is also very fluid and very progressive. So for this reason, I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but India has become the global hub for traditional medicine. Anybody knows how that happened? It's of course there on the slide. How has India become the global hub for traditional medicine? Because the WHO, the World Health Organization, has established the first global center for traditional medicine in India. In Jamnagar, Gujarat, the building is constructed already. The appointments have been made. There was a global task force. It functioned through a task force, and now various experts have already been appointed, and in the next 1 or 2 years a huge infrastructure is also being set up. So both the WHO and many other global bodies, like if you look at even the US National Institutes of Health, which is the apex body for research in the United States, they have one of their institutions under it's called National Institutes of Health. It's not one institution, it's a collection of many institutes. So you have National Cancer Institute, which is one of the institutes under the NIH. And another institute is on traditional medicine, which they call as National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. It was earlier known as the NCCAM, National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. Now they are thinking of all of this under the umbrella of integrative medicine. So it has become NCCIH. And I just wanted to share that there is great interest. When I was in the institution where I was working, we got a grant from the NIH to study Ayurveda. So that is showing the global interest. It's the first NIH grant to study Ayurveda, and through that we could collaborate. So this shows that there is also global interest in exploring what systems of medicine like Ayurveda can do. So the question here is that if we bring traditional medicine and modern medicine together in India, India could become the leader for integrative medicine for the whole world. Because there is no other country where legally it is possible to practice all systems of medicine. India is the only country. I mean, there are many small countries, but India is a country with the population. India is number 1 or 2 now. Number 1 in the world. So with this population, with this diversity, India could showcase to the world how integrative medicine should happen. So it is very sad that we are not taking that leadership. In India, medical pluralism exists, but no integration. There is coexistence, but no cooperation. So one of the reasons why we should learn about Indian medical heritage is to see that unless the whole population, unless we all bring it at a policy level that we must have integrative medicine, this will not develop. So students, even at a young age, they should become aware of these systems, aware of their potential. Only then through this kind of participation, we can develop the kind of knowledge base that is necessary to create integration. So this is the idea, to bring Indian medical heritage into the educational curriculum so that we can realize this potential. So we can have, lot of interdisciplinary options. Professor M.S. Veliathan was the pioneer in this field, trying to bring, even before that, Mashelkar brought this golden triangle concept: traditional medicine, modern science and modern medicine together. He called that as the golden triangle. If modern experts and Ayurveda experts come together, we could create a golden triangle that would become the hub for creating new innovations in medicine. And I will show you what is the potential if modern knowledge and traditional knowledge come together, how we can, kickstart a whole series of innovations that could bring solutions for so many problems that we are facing today. So for one example, I'm sure you have heard of this 2016 Nobel Prize. So I want to show how some of the ideas in our own tradition are even worthy of the Nobel Prize, but we don't think of it in that way. Until when a Nobel Prize comes, we suddenly realize that, this is something which our ancestors were also talking about. So I'd like to bring your attention first to the 2016 Nobel Prize in Medicine And physiology, I may not be correct with the pronunciation, Yoshinori Osumi, I don't know how it is pronounced. He unraveled the mechanism behind what is called autophagy, and for this he won the Nobel Prize in that. So this is literally called self-eating. It means that autophagy is a fundamental cellular process for degrading and recycling cellular components. So if you fast for 12 to 48 hours, the cutoff point is you must fast for 12 hours. So that is possible every day actually. You can fast every day. If you fast today with our new food culture, we cannot even fast for 2 hours. So here we are talking about fasting for 12 hours, which was nothing for our old people. I mean, it was so natural for them. So if you fast for 12 to 8 hours, this activates what is called, it's a little bit technical, don't worry about it, AMPK signaling pathway, inhibits mTOR activity, which in turn activates autophagy. So there are some physiological changes that happen in the body if you fast for 12 hours, and that kicks in autophagy, which is a process of self-renewal, a self-repair. I mean, this can help in a lot of problems, in delaying the onset of degenerative diseases, in slowing the process of aging, in becoming more healthy. And now what I wanted to highlight is that this idea was there in the Mahabharata, not in Ayurveda. So a lot of things, if you want to study Ayurveda, you must study the entire Sanskrit literature, because a lot of Ayurveda is there in Mahabharata, Ramayana, Raghuvamsha. And if you study only Ayurveda, that is why Sushruta said, Egam Shastram Adhiyano na Vidyat Shastra Nishche. If you study only Ayurveda, you will not understand it. Tasmat Bahushruta Shastram Vijaniyat Chikitsa. You must study other Shastras also. So some ideas, some health concepts are seen. I am fascinated. We are doing a work on that. I will explain that also. Seen only in other Sanskrit literature. So here, there is a question in the Mahabharata, Katham Sadobhavasi Syad. So whoever asked that question should be given the Nobel Prize for autophagy, actually. Because this question of how can I be in a perpetual state of fasting? This question is being asked in Mahabharata. So we today think that fasting means depriving ourselves of food continuously for 3 days, 4 days, or once in 2 weeks, completely abstaining for food. What the Mahabharata says, and Bhagavad Gita also says, don't do such extreme things. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta jeshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. Natyasnatastu yogosti, nacheganda manasnata. If you completely deprive yourself of food or overeat, you will not succeed in yoga. Today that is how people are doing yoga also. Eating all the food and then trying to do this gymnastics. It will not be of any help. Some others go to other extremes. So what Mahabharata is telling is a very simple technique. Sayam pradar manushyanam bhojanam veda nirmidam nantara bhojanam kuryad upavasi tatha bhavet. So what they did was create a window for eating where you have a period of more than 12 hours of fasting. 12 to 16 hours of fasting in your daily routine. Fast, so then you don't need to do any other fasting. So I have been experimenting with this. If you eat in the morning, from morning to evening, within an 8 hours window, if you space all your meals, and then you create, if you eat up before 6 p.m., from to morning 6 a.m. it's 12 hours. Another 4 hours you can easily get 16 to 18 hours of fasting every day. And what modern research is showing, this is today called as chrononutrition. And this is almost like a translation of an old Sanskrit. Yeah, this is also called as intermittent fasting. There are many views of intermittent fasting, that's why I didn't use that term. And chrononutrition and the Sanskrit term kala bhojanam. See, which came first? Kala bhojanam has been around for centuries, and chrononutrition is a very new concept. So there are many, many ideas. Today when we look at Ayurveda, we are just thinking of one medicine or new medicine. It's not just medicine, it's entire perspectives that traditional medical wisdom gives. And today we have very powerful modern science also. If you bring these things together, see, in traditional knowledge a lot of things are described, we don't know the mechanisms, we don't know how it happens. Today we have the tools. So if you bring these two things together, we can be leading in many of these scientific frontiers of scientific discovery, we can bring in many new ideas into modern medicine. The next Nobel Prize in medicine. So 2 Nobel Prizes we have missed already. So and 1 Nobel Prize went to a Chinese Yu for artemisinin. So she got the clue that Artemisia annua is a plant which is used for malaria, and what she discovered was that when they used the various extracts of that plant, it was not working, until she read in a Chinese medicine manuscript that the water extract is what will work, because that compound is soluble only in water. And that clue was obtained from traditional medicine, and then she was able to isolate the active component, and this became a big boon for drug resistant malaria. So traditional medicine is a treasure house of such clues for development of new knowledge. But unless we bring this into our educational system, make people also curious about this knowledge, we will not explore it. So Jeffrey C. Hall and Mikhail Rosbash discovered what is called as chronobiology, that we actually have a biological clock. So this idea was there, but they of course established it at a molecular level. So discovered the gene that encodes a protein that accumulates at night and degrades during the day. So this biological clock regulates critical functions such as behavior, hormone levels, sleep, body temperature, and metabolism. So our well-being is affected when there is a mismatch between our external environment and the internal biological clock. Now this has been the whole basis of Ayurvedic advice for lifestyle. Ayurveda had this concept of dinacharya, ritucharya, that everything, in India everything was muhurtam. You know what is the meaning of the word muhurtam? Muhurritam. Ritam means this, the rhythm of the universe itself. Rhythm in English is also rhythm. There are many Sanskrit words which are very closely linked to, English words linked to Sanskrit. Rhythm is one thing. So muhurritam is muhurtam. Aligning yourself again and again with the rhythm of the universe. That is why in India for everything we wanted a muhurtam. So that, we align it with the biological clock, with the circadian rhythms, with the whole flow of nature. When do we wake up? When do we do? So we have, this was one of the oldest chronobiological clock mapping, where the day was divided into 6 yamas, and each yama in the tantric tradition, now this is not there in Ayurveda. The tantric tradition gives names for these yamas. We know some of these yamas. Saraswati yama people know. In Malayalam there is a film song also, Saraswati yamam kazhinju. So many people may have heard of Saraswati yama, but the other yamas, Gandharva yama, some people know, but that is not there in this classification. So Saraswati yama, then Shri yama, Jeshta yama, Parvati yama, Durga yama, and Kali yama. And I want to give attention to Kali yama here. Kali yama is the time around 9 to 10 p.m. Kali yama starts, and then it stops around 2 a.m. According to Ayurveda, this is the time that we should definitely sleep. And if you look at it, this is the time when the melatonin hormone is at its peak in our body. So it corresponds to the modern idea also. And melatonin is called as the dark hormone. And Kali is also called as the dark one. What Kali does? Kali will come and cut our heads and hold it in her hand. This is literally what happens when we sleep. Sleep is like an anesthesia, where the body doesn't want our conscious mind to interfere, so that the body can be completely repaired. Modern studies have also indicated that this phase of sleep is when a lot of self-repair happens. The body does a lot of maintenance. According to Ayurveda, this is the Pitta Kala, where a lot of repair happens. So it is not good actually to burn the midnight oil. If we are awake at this time, we will be very alert. So Ayurveda says that we should sleep just before Kaliyama begins, so that the minimum time that we need to sleep, even if you are a yogi, they say you need only 4 hours of sleep. So this is the time that yogis would also prefer to sleep. From Saraswati Yama, it is okay to be awake depending on the level of your development. So most people would still need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and they can wake up only much later. So I'm not going into too many details. What I wanted to show was this idea of chronobiology is also something which is very strong in the old tradition. If we had taken clues from this, could not have an Indian scientist discovered this gene if we were inspired from our own tradition, because these ideas can, come by looking at our old traditions. So here you can see yamas and activities. This is not a lecture on how to do your daily routine, so I'm not going into the details, just conveying there are many things to discuss. So according to the yama, specific activities have been advised. So Saraswati Yama is the time for waking up, body cleansing and pursuit of intellectual activities. Sri Yama is when you have to be active in your career. Today we are most of the time still engaged in our daily routines at that time. Jyeshtha Yama is the time when you do just your routine activities. According to Ayurveda, there should be a work-life balance. So afternoons you are not supposed to do any work. I was thinking how nice it would have been if the Ayurvedic daily routine came up. I mean, we would all be free and relaxed by afternoon. So relaxation, recreation, but there of course the idea was to learn about dharma. This was the time where all the temple festivals, arts, people used to listen to the Mahabharata. So we don't have time for all that today. The whole afternoon, dharmyabhir arthyabhir madhyam dinam gamayet. That is what Ayurveda says. Look at all these art forms were created to convey the idea of dharma in a light way. So people would relax, enjoy, be with their friends. And so half of the day is for enjoyment. So today stress, we know, is one of the biggest factors for disease. The way we design our lifestyle, our whole professional working style is actually anayushyam. Ayurveda would say this is anayushyam, anarogyakaram. It will create disease and it will also reduce your lifespan. So then there is another thing I want to show. See, these leads happen, but we have not followed upon that. Blood pressure is one of the major diseases today. I mean, almost everybody, youngsters, even after a certain age, even in their 30s, they're beginning to develop blood pressure. But how many of us know that the first medicine for blood pressure was inspired by Ayurveda? Have you heard of this plant, Rauwolfia serpentina? So this was one of the breakthroughs in psychopharmacology. But after that, these kind of explorations into traditional medicine, Ayurveda almost stopped. For that matter, a lot of medicines in modern medicine has come from plants. So this one Indian physician, Rustam Jal Vakil, is considered responsible for introducing Rauwolfia to Western medicine. So he collected data on patients treated with Rauwolfia for 10 years, from 1939 to 1949, even before independence. So he, in 1949, he published a watershed paper on the antihypertensive properties of Rauwolfia serpentina, and he presented detailed results from treating 50 patients who had high blood pressure with the root of Rauwolfia, and the results were very remarkable and significant. So this led to the first development of any antihypertensive drug in modern medicine. So by 1949, more than 90% of Indian physicians were using Rauwolfia. 100 scientific articles were published. Okay. Now a lot of work happened. So this is the way modern medicine develops drugs. So this had its plus and minus also. They look at what chemicals are there in this plant, and they identified reserpine. That was also a big success, but because of so many side effects, reserpine had to be eventually withdrawn. But Ayurveda physicians still use Rauwolfia serpentina. If you use the whole plant very carefully, it is still effective in the management of blood pressure in combination. So this also brings us to new ideas. Sometimes it's not enough that we just isolate the active principle. It may be more effective if you create a cocktail of molecules. One example I can give you is turmeric and pepper. Turmeric has a compound called curcumin. But curcumin has very poor bioavailability. Most of the time we are using curcumin, it has only a cosmetic effect on our dishes, no medicinal effect. Because you take it, it will just pass through your bowels. Nothing is going to get absorbed. If you add pepper, there is another compound called piperin in pepper, and that will enhance the bioavailability of curcumin by 2000 times. 2000 times. Because this kind of synergism is very important, because you cannot, if you want to really get benefit out of turmeric, you will have to eat kilos, which is not possible. Who can take kilos of turmeric? You will have to make a paste of turmeric and push it into the mouth of everybody around you. Some of our dishes like kalan in Kerala is a combination of curds, then yam, then turmeric and pepper. So it helps both iron absorption from the yam, and it also gives more curcumin available. It's a very good anti-inflammatory agent. So what Ayurveda also tells us, it opens up a new idea in pharmacology, that instead of using isolated molecules, combinations may be used. Today we can do this molecular analysis because we have this modern technology also, but the clues can come from Ayurveda. So this, in 1952, reserpine was introduced as the drug Serpacil for the treatment of hypertension, tachycardia and thyrotoxicosis. But as happens with extremely purified alkaloids and chemicals, later people began to understand that there are so many side effects with this. But then by that time it had already opened up a new door in the development, what is called as ethnopharmacology. I mean, developing new drugs using ethnic knowledge. Another example I want to give from traditional medicine, which has happened in our time. So these are the ways in which we should look at traditional medical knowledge. Even now there are so many diseases for which we don't have medicines or approaches. If you look at the wisdom of traditional medicine and bring modern knowledge together, we might be able to create a lot of innovative products. Jeevani is a medicine that was developed by JNTBGRI. Have you all heard of JNTBGRI? Which is there in Palod. So the old director there, Dr. P. Pushpangadhan, he was leading that institute long back, and he was also part of the All India coordinated research project on ethnobiology. So the TBGRI's Herbal Product Development Division created the product called Jeevani, a polyherbal drug that contains Arogyasamskrti. This is a plant which is growing in the Agastya Malai, where Kani tribals are using it. So this was mixed with Vidania somnifera, Piper longum and Evolvulus alsinoides.